fit of the cabin is problematic. I did test fit this before I painted it and I was fairly happy with it, but now I've come to fit it, I've had to sand the tabs down. There's a lot of sort of pushing things into place. I don't know whether addition of paint has made things worse, quite possibly, probably. We've got it down as best I can. I now can't get it really back out, so it's in but not glued in, and that's sort of how it's going to stay, I think. But it's not really sitting flush. My advice is to remove all the tabs, with the exception of the back ones, which hold it out slightly. And yeah, so fit isn't perfect. It's okay, but it's not perfect. And I have some. Yeah, I'm not happy from a modeller's point of view. It doesn't work as it should. Yeah, it's a bit annoying really that you can't get it to sit properly. But at arm's distance, it's going to look okay. So with the lifeboat having to be sort of spotless and well maintained as it would be, I thought it'd be fun if we did something a bit different with the base. So that's why I've painted it in this sort of bulldozer yellow, if you like. Because what I want to do now is I want to give it a bit of weathering and show the pristine lifeboat on a slightly weathered stillage. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of rust effects on it and have a little bit of fun with this bit, I think. So using a very fine brush, we can just highlight some bits and pieces and have a bit of fun. So after putting a bit of wash down in strategic places, I went round with some chipping colour, which is one of these AK felt tip paint pens, which I started using a couple of weeks ago, and the end result is that, which I'm quite happy with. I think it captures what I wanted, you know, a stillage that keeps getting used. It's functional, so maintenance isn't something they concentrate on, and I think when it's on the Lifeboat, it really is a nice contrast. So yeah, happy with that. Okay, we're going to start with a gentle dab of medium CA, and then just attach the end, just so that it makes just a little bit of contact, and then just hold it there for a sec. Slipped out of my tweezers, that's not what we want. So we'll just give that a moment, and while that's having a moment, we'll do this lower one. We're going to do that one slightly differently, so I'm going to put some CA on the end of the fishing wire. That should be plenty, and then just feed it in, because in this instance that hole is also the end of the line, so it doesn't go through to the second stanchion. So we can put that in. I'm just going to pull it straight a bit so that it's sitting naturally. Right, okay, that's the general idea, and then what we'll do at the back end is exactly the same. We've just got to cut it to length. So is that in shot? Not quite. There we go. So we can gently pull this tight, and hopefully we won't pull it out at the front, but actually that's what I've just done. So I'm just going to leave that for a minute. I'm going to do the other side while this is all drying. My glue is getting on a bit, and its drying time is not what it was, plus it's a bit warm today. So we've already done the attachments on the front at this side, so we should be able to just pull it taut and get this on now. So what we're going to do is get the scissors, pull the line tight, snip the line off, a little bit of glue on the end of the fishing line, and get it in contact. For some reason, still seems a bit long. Don't know what's happened there. Let's just check that fits now. Yeah, that's okay. Still might be a touch long though, so I think we can afford to trim a little bit off. Right, glue on. There we go. Just check it's nice and tight while I've got a bit of setting time. There we go. Yeah, that looks good, I think. Now I don't want to do too much of this, but a little bit of panel liner is just going to highlight one or two areas. Now the reason why I don't want to do too much is because the orange particularly in real life bounces light pretty well, so you don't get a lot of shadow on it. And so if we highlighted all these bolt heads here, for example, it would look wrong because you just don't see that on real life. You don't even see the gap here around the edge. So we're just doing certain things, and actually we're keeping it more to the metal areas than anything. But one area that absolutely will benefit from a little bit of a wash is the grill here on the side. So we're definitely doing that. Would have been easier to do this before we put this part on across the front, to be honest. But it's not really a problem. There we go. So that just pops the grill out a little bit. There you go. And then we can put a little bit of shadow on the door here where we've got the sort of perforations at the back. So in a minute we'll go over with a little bit of thinners and just thin that down, I think, because it's just a touch on the dark side. And then we've got the little joint at the base here. Same here, where we've not really got definition where the metal has shape, so we can just plop that in with a little bit of artificial shadow. And then here where the black and the metal meets on the little capstan here. And that's probably all we need to do. Yeah, I think so. So that's a little bit thick for my liking, so we're just going to thin that down a little bit. So all I'm going to do is clean the brush with white spirit, because that's an enamel wash we've put on. So we'll get the brush nice and clean. There we go. And then while the brush is moist, we can just go in and tidy it up, so we can take back the little excess. We just brush it over, which thins it out. Clean the brush again and just keep doing that around all the areas where we put a little bit of panel liner. So anything where we think it's a bit excessive, we can just take it back. And if you get any on something that you didn't want it on, again, you can take it back. There we go, like that. So we can just reduce the amount that's on there and let that original colour pop back through again. Only takes a moment, but it does make a big difference to your model. There we go. So that's it done for the wash. So the last thing we've got to do is paint in the railings, and once again my new friend, the AK paint pen, is going to help us with that. Now normally I use a black marker, but we're going to try using the flat black paint pen. No reason why it shouldn't work. Doing exactly the same job as a marker. Yeah, that's going down okay. So when you look at the actual thing, there's a linkage on each one of these between the stanchions, which is silver. So the edges of our railing chain, which is more of a cord really, is silver. And the centre bits are black. So I'm doing the black first, and then we'll try and evenly get those linkages in, which will be a little bit tricky freehand, but hopefully won't be too bad. And it does mean if we have any accidents with this black pen, we can simply tidy them up with the aluminium after. Yeah, that's working okay. That's no different than using a marker, like I say, which would be my ordinary method. Right, so that can dry on this side, whilst, I mean, these pens, they dry so quickly, and I've found lots of value for it on this model. In a minute, what we'll do, as this is the last job, is we'll just talk you back through the build, what went well, what didn't go well, and what my thoughts are of the kit as a starter set. Right, you've got an idea of what I'm doing. I'll come back to you when I do the silver so you can see the finished effect. So the very last thing we have to do is these little aluminium chain linkages, and what these really do is tells the eye where these very thin railings are. I mean, they're not rails. I think they're chain covered in like a black rubberized cord. But you can see it really identifies them, makes them stand out. You can see them. So I'm really pleased with the fishing wire solution I came up with to get a better scale on these. Yeah, it looks great, and these pens make it such an easy job. Now, we could have done it with paint, but actually we probably would have been putting it down a little bit too thick without these pens. So we'll talk about the pens a little bit in the wrap up in a sec. So there we have it, she's done. So what did I think of Airfix's new Shannon class starter set? So this is it here, 172 scale. You get a little contribution to the RNLI, which is great. What was my thoughts? Well, I think clearly the model is stunning when it's completed. It really does capture the Shannon class lifeboat really, really well. So it's an excellent kit, actually, and I thoroughly enjoyed building it. Now, as a starter set, there are a couple of challenges, and I think of the new generation of starter sets, this is probably the most difficult one I've built. Compared to the other ones, so things like the Red Arrow, the Spitfire I've done, very easy compared to this. This has definitely got more complexity. And if you are brand new to the modelling, I think you wouldn't have any major problems with this at all. You have to remember that starter sets are really built or aimed at bringing youngsters into the hobby. So some of the things that more experienced modelers see as flaws and faults, youngsters wouldn't see, because their imagination goes beyond what's actually presented in front of them. So I know that the fit of the cabin, which is challenging, wouldn't have put me off. The fact that you can't get it perfect, so it would never pass anything in a show, but it doesn't matter because kids ignore the gaps. It's the same with the fit of the deck onto the hull. Yeah, it leaves you with a little seam that needs to be filled. Kids aren't going to bother about that. They're really not. They're just going to say, whoa, this looks just like the real thing. This just looks like the one I saw at Scarborough. So there is a couple of challenges. We've talked about the fit challenges. So the only fit issue for me was the cabin, which I had to do some modifications for. I had to cut away some of the location lugs, and it's not gone down perfectly, but it is what it is. Some of those tabs just need thinning down and the depth of them taken out, but yeah, I did dry fit it before it was painted and seemed to think it was okay, but yeah, it's not perfect and it does give you some challenges. The other challenge was the decals. So 2 of the decals are oversized. So if I just get my something to point with, just bear with me. So this decal down here, you can see this yellow and white one, that one there, that's oversized and it has a white border around it which goes way beyond the raised area on the model, and it just takes up too much space, and I cut that off while the decal was wet when I realised, which was a bit tricky, but to be honest, you want to try and cut that off on the paper before you separate the decal from its backing paper, because it's massively oversized, and if you've not got setting fluids and stuff, that decal's not going to sit down properly. The other one that's massively oversized is this one here, the little red one that has number 4 on, that goes well beyond the edges there, and again, without setting fluid, it would look silly, but it really wants to be trimmed down so it fits within. So some test fitting, cutting it out before you separate it in the water, again, is the way to go, which is what I did. So yeah, the other tricky thing was the white line, and for me, these 2 decals here on the hull, the yellow and red stripe and then the white stripe, I'm struggling really, because part of me says, yeah, they make the model look really, really good, and it wouldn't be the same without them. But at the same time, those decals are beyond a beginner. Because they're very, very long, very, very thin, and this white one particularly, which has to go over all sorts of different shapes, very, very tricky to do. I've not got it right. I don't think I've necessarily got the black and blue marking point right, because the paint instructions as they are, they're just too vague. So whilst I think I've got it in the right place, when you come to it at the back, they're clearly not in the right place, and I've ended up with them not being quite straight, and then I made the mistake of setting that one in first, and I've put it in too high and it should have been lower down, but I didn't really realise that till I was measuring up the other 2. So yeah, they're not the easiest thing to do, and I was having a conversation with myself, does this mean that really it's not a starter set? Well, no, it is still a starter set, but it's a challenging one, and probably what I'd say is you want to build 1 or 2 of the other starter sets before you tackle the Lifeboat. Okay, so from a starter set point of view, I think it's a phenomenal kit. It's great that we've got something floaty from Airfix again. I want them to do more boats. Don't have to do ships if they don't want to do ships, but there's lots of different boats and things they absolutely could do that lots of people would love to buy into. So I really do hope it's the start of bigger and better things in terms of ships and boats from Airfix, because when they do boats and ships, they're doing better than anybody else. Genuinely they do. So yeah, okay, now then, with a more critical modeller's eye on it, I built this not as a starter set. I didn't go, right, I'm going to limit myself to the paints, I'm not going to limit myself to what's in the kit. I built this as a genuine model, so let me take you through what we did. So I started off with the base deciding that I wanted to do it different than the dark blue. So not limiting yourself to the paints that come in the kit means you've got a bit of freedom to express yourself a little bit more. And I'm really quite happy with this display base, which I've painted up to look like some form of industrialized stillage. And there's enough detail on there to do that. They've put little rivets on. There's the little blocks on the top which you can pick out separately like I did. And then with a little bit of flamboyance, I decided we'd put some blue down where the decal goes, just so that the white of the lettering stood out better than it would have done on the yellow. So I think that looks really good. It looks suitably industrial and used and brings a little bit of realism to it in my mind. Then we've gone with the 33 matte black within the kit for the hull, but in addition to that, we've put the little running strips on. These are designed to be drive up, piloted up onto the beach, where they get winched onto their travelling frame. So they're designed with these skids in mind. So we simply did that with some aluminium paint, which is the same aluminium paint we've used throughout the build. The blue that's in the kit, it's the Humbrol blue. I don't think it's a perfect match. I think it's a little bit too light, but it's not far off in fairness. And then we've got the black bumpers, which I chose to fill, and that's the first thing that Airfix have got a mistake on. So on the paint instructions, you can see that Airfix have said paint in between them in grey, the deck colour. Well, that's a mistake, because actually when you look at the pictures of the real thing, and I got some great ones close up of it in the factory being constructed, and actually that is all one piece that goes round there. Well, it's several pieces, but this, the cutouts, which is where you've got the opportunity to tie up ropes on the cleats there, and the fairleads, it's actually still rubber, and it is actually proud of the deck. So Airfix have ever so slightly modelled that wrong, and I'm giving you an incorrection on the paint instructions. So if you simply go between those gaps with black and get it to the same level of the back of that, it looks a lot more authentic, which is what I've done there. The deck itself is somewhat simplified. You'd expect that for a starter set, but they have got all the appropriate detail on there, and some of it, if you pick it out, it just comes to life a little bit. So the hinges on the hatches on the back there are actually black, which I've picked out, and then what we did on the front here, with this particular part right on the nose, if you remember, we drilled out and opened it up, so you can see through the gaps, which just adds a little bit of realism to it. Now, I don't know whether this is whether the kit instructions is correct for the first Lifeboat or not, but certainly on some pictures I've seen of the Lifeboat, and I've not seen many of the at the front, that the blade on the anchor is yellow. So that's why I've done it in the yellow. It makes it highly visible, which I'm guessing is why they've done it. Now, it might be that's a later modification or something they've changed on later models. I don't know, but I went with it as yellow because it just gives you another splash of colour which breaks up the grey deck. Now, my grey deck is closer to the actual grey on the Lifeboats, whereas the grey that has been given to you by Airfix is just way too pale. Then let's see, what else have we done? Oh yeah, a little point on these railings. These railings fit beautifully, the black ones. Really nice fit, and you can use the holes in the deck and in the cabin there, superstructure, as a jig when you're building them, build them up, and then you can paint them complete. That worked really, really well. I was pleased with that. And then picking out all these little details. In the instructions, for simplification, because it's a starter set, they've painted them all grey, and then they've painted the side railing, stanchions and the back frame there in the same grey as the deck. And when you look at the pictures, they almost look grey, so I don't have a problem with it. But when you look really close up, actually it's like a dull brushed stainless steel. So I've gone with aluminium throughout this, which I think hits the mark really well, and gives you a fairly good match to what that is. So the railings, obviously they're a little bit chunky on the real thing. Airfix have you paint them black, which is absolutely correct, between the stanchions, but they are a bit chunky. They shouldn't be as chunky as that. So what we did is we cut them off, we drilled holes, and then we've put fishing wire, let me remind myself, 0.12 fishing wire through that, which has allowed us then to give us a little bit more of a realistic feel to the railings there. And then at the back there's a couple of little extra things that we've done. So if you look on the back there, the floor area is painted black, and so is the step up, which Airfix have you leave orange. That's incorrect. That floor area is black, and it's a bit simplified around the steering wheel there. There's only one decal on it, so I just painted out some little black switches, because there's like a radio set there and various little switches and dials and things, so I just wanted to bring that to life a little bit. The mast itself is a very good assembly of what it should look like. At the back there it's simplified. I didn't modify it, but it's more like a couple of steps. It almost looks like a ladder, that bit. So with a little bit more time and will, you could cut that bit off and sort that out. What we have done, the colours that Airfix have given you are correct. So the bits that are white should be white, and the bits that are black should be black. But what I have done, if you can see just there you go. That's a little orange lamp. So we painted it in the aluminium and then went over it with a little bit of clear orange to make it look like an orange lamp just on the real thing. Little bit tricky to do is the last aerials, because they're black and white and there's no instructions on what height to do. So you just have to eyeball it and try and make sure you get them level, which I believe I've managed to do. Yeah, and that is it. There's a little bit of detail on the life preservers at the back, which we've picked out in the metal so that it looks a little bit more authentic. You could sand off the little ropes that are on there and then attach some string on if you wanted, but I've chosen not to. Yeah, and there we go, Scarborough Lifeboat. The two little raised round circles at the back, they're little covers, baffles that move from the exhaust, so they open up when the exhaust is pumping out, and they're stainless steel again, so painted those in aluminium. And that is nearly it, actually. I was going to say that's it. On the inside, you actually can't see it so well, but I'm going to wonder if we put a torch on, we'll be able to see it. I want to show you what we did on the inside. So on the inside, you can just make it out there. If I put a torch on, it becomes a little bit more obvious. You see what looks like the little yellow there? We just painted the raised screens in front of the seats, because there's no decals or anything for them. We just painted those in a green to make them look a bit like monitors. So that's a simple little thing. Otherwise, we painted everything black, and the interior is grey, which I think from the 1 or 2 pictures I found pretty much is what they're like inside. So yeah, we did use the Humbrol orange, and it went down sprayed really nicely and has come out really well. I went with a slightly different orange on the back, so you can see there's a contrast between the orange and the orange of that. I didn't want it to be the same orange. It's always good to get a bit of contrast when you can. It just adds a bit of realism. So that's how I've gone about it, and you know, I have done this in about 2 and a bit weekends. I've done it over 3 weekends, but haven't exclusively worked on it all the time on one of those weekends. So 1 weekend to clean up all the parts, build it all up. So 1 day really, it wasn't the full weekend. Then 2 weekends to get it painted up, because there is more painting than you think. Now I have to mention the AK Real Colour markers, because I've used those extensively throughout the build. All of the aluminium you see on this model has been done with this aluminium pen. All of it. All the little details picked out with the pen. The painting and the railings, the stanchions, done it in the pen. I wanted to see how far I could push the pens, and these pens have really grown on me throughout that build. The black on the railings, again this pen, and on the mast this pen, on the aerial this pen. The black on these little fittings, this pen. And although we painted the bumper in the 33 black, we did some touch up on the pen, and actually that matched the Humbrol 33 black really well, so we didn't have to end up going over the whole thing. So really happy with the pens. They have been a real boon. In fact, the orange on the life preservers is a marker pen, and so is the yellow on the anchor there. The white wasn't good enough to do that, and we ended up painting the white in using ICM Off-White 1028, and that looks great. And then we've used the clear orange, and the deck was a Humbrol colour, and I forget the number, but that was we painted the deck in enamel paint so that we wouldn't see the brush marks so well, and then that was sealed with a Humbrol clear matte. So we pretty much stayed with Humbrol, and if we weren't using Humbrol in the main, we used the AK markers or 1 to 2 of the ICM paints. The yellow was also an ICM paint, and the blue on here was a marker. So the markers have really managed to speed the job up for me, and do things more quickly. So they're really handy. I wouldn't go and buy into the full set like I have done. I would probably just buy colours that you need as you need them and build them up, because you can buy these individually. I have done a review on these separately. If you're interested in finding out more about them, then if you go into my products playlist, you'll see a video on them. Okay, there you go. That is it done. I'm going to take some photographs, and you can have a bit of a close-up look of this beautiful model from Airfix. Airfix, thank you so much for doing a little model boat. It's absolutely brilliant. I want to see more boats and ships from you, because nobody does them like Airfix. Thank you very much, everybody. I really enjoyed that. I hope you did. You enjoy your modelling and these pictures, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free, and that way you won't miss my first impressions, my tool reviews, my product reviews, and any of my builds, including wooden model kits as well as plastic. It's all free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.